The way to success and the way to prosperity is through meditation. It's through meditating in God's Word. It's slowing down. Last year, my dog, Sage, which is a Labrador Retriever, hunting dog, was sitting out by the fire pit where I was reading and hanging out, and she was gnawing on a bone, and she was making all kinds of growly noises. She was tossing it in the air and then grabbing it and then gnawing on it some more and just sucking the life out of this bone. And I was happy because she wasn't bugging me with another saliva-filled tennis ball. To my surprise, on that particular day, I was actually studying the word meditation and found something very, very interesting, that the word gnaw, or the word for gnaw, is the same word for growl in the Old Testament, and that's haggah. So haggah is the ancient Hebrew word. And the prophet Isaiah writes in Isaiah 31:4, as a young lion growls over his prey. That's the same word for meditation. And that's exactly what Sage was doing, was growling and sucking on this bone. And we think of meditation as some guy in a lotus position in a garden somewhere, legs crossed, palms up, going, or something like that. And we sometimes think in the West of meditation as entirely a cerebral exercise. But actually meditation is this idea of gnawing, growling, and seeping everything we can out of that which we're thinking about. So when we meditate on God's Word, we are getting the enzymes and the vitamins of God's Spirit into our system. We're metabolizing God's truth into us. And habit 5 is eating this book. And the reason I chose to call it eating this book is because that's the metaphor that the scriptures indicate meditation in the Bible. So in Jeremiah, he is told to eat the book. On the island of Patmos, John was commanded to eat the scroll. Ezekiel was told to eat the book. This idea of eating the book is the idea of assimilation, assimilating God's Word into your life. That's literally what meditation is. And it's so, so important that we're getting the book, we're getting the Word, we're taking time in our life to meditate in God's Word. We live in a very restless time in history. Probably we're the busiest of any people group ever in the history of the world here in the West. I don't know that that's true in the East. Definitely not true in most of Africa and Asia, where our society isn't quite as fast-paced. But in the culture that we live in, we have perpetual unrest. And much of the diseases we have, much of the sickness that we're struggling with is because we never slow down. And we are addicted to busyness. We're addicted to our phones. We're addicted to social media. We're addicted to noise. So noise is all around us. And yet the scriptures say that the way to success and the way to prosperity is through meditation, is through meditating in God's Word. It's slowing down. 65 to 85% of all sickness is rooted in the mental and spiritual. 99% of headaches, 75% of stomach disorders, 75% of asthma, and 75% of skin disease is related to the spiritual and the emotional. In other words, if we're not strengthening our emotional system, if we're not strengthening our spiritual system, you're going to get sick. I was just with a pastor a few minutes ago, just before I came to do this recording, and he has so many physical issues. And I talked to him. I said, look, you are going too hard. He's actually a traveling speaker in the United States, and he travels around the country with different other speakers and Christian bands and things like that. and he struggles with his health. And we were talking about that, and he was sharing with me just the kind of schedule that he keeps. And I don't think anybody could be able to find joy and rest in the schedule that he keeps. So he'll have to make some decisions about that. Well, David, as a young sheep herder and then later king, recounts where he finds his strength in the most beloved of all Psalms, and it's Psalm 23. Let me read it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you're with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23 is a shepherd boy recounting the stillness and the quietness of the hills around Bethlehem as he watched his sheep, and how that restored his soul, how that strengthened him from within. I want to challenge you in habit 5, meditation, gnawing, thinking on, dwelling on, drinking from God's Word, eating the book is going to be strength to your soul. And it's a habit that you have to develop. And so as a young man, as a new Christian at the University of Georgia, I heard about, we didn't call it PB&J, which I've talked about earlier, but we just call it a quiet time. I started doing that. I'd never done that before. That seemed like the oddest thing to me, to get away every morning in my study or at the library. A lot of times I actually went out to the practice field for the football team, the turf field out there, and nobody's around. If it was a beautiful day, especially in the fall, I love to do this. I would go under these oak trees where the leaves were changing because I loved being outdoors. And I would just open the Word with my journal and spend time with the Lord all through college. That's what I did, because I was learning the value of meditation. I was learning the value of pulling away and finding what I like to call solitude. Not solitude, but solitude. Finding that rest and just being alone, no noise. And of course, it was easier back then. We didn't have social media. We didn't have phones. We weren't constantly inundated with information coming to us. It was more of, it was just easier. It was easier back then. In two passages, there's two major passages in the Old Testament that talk about success and prosperity. And both of them say the same thing. So David, who wrote Psalm 1, said this: Blessed is the man who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, whom he meditates in that law day and night. And then later it says, whatever he does shall prosper. So David, who certainly was very successful and prosperous in his life, attributed it to meditating in God's Word. Joshua, God speaking to Joshua before he went into the promised land, the Lord said to Joshua, This book of the law, you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Men and women, I want to challenge you that meditation is so important in your life. And it's interesting because science is catching up to the Bible and talks about the benefits of meditation. Everything you read about meditation usually lends itself to the incredible benefits that it has for us. So let me just give you a few from the scientific research that I studied and looked at. Number one, meditation reduces stress. So the short-term and the long-term benefits of meditation is reducing stress in your life by pulling away from the noise, pulling away from the busyness, even for short periods of time. It doesn't have to be a long period of time, but getting away just quiet, just being alone, consistently a little bit of time every day is going to reduce your stress. Number two, this is interesting, meditation boosts your energy levels. So you actually get energy from pulling away. And it's interesting in sports, with sports psychologists right now, you will often see, and I observed this a lot last year during the football season, in college football, how many of the quarterbacks and running backs would be in the end zone, their eyes closed, meditating before the game starts. And we saw this actually in the national championship with the quarterback for one of the teams that was in the NCAA National Football Championship, him meditating. Thirdly, meditation boosts memory. So when you meditate regularly in God's truth and in God's word, it actually increases your memory. And then this one was the most interesting to me. Meditation curbs the tendency to overreact in stressful situations. In an early study published by the APA, people who meditated and practiced mindfulness were better able to disengage from emotionally upsetting situations and better able to focus on tasks compared to subjects exposed to the same stimuli, but they had not meditated. Make it a habit to get up each morning. I think morning the best, but even in our passages we read, morning or evening or morning and evening, to just slow down before you start looking at your phone, before you start listening to the noise. Why not just spend that time in God's Word and relax, spend time with God, and watch what He'll do in your life.